Alright, so this is going to be part 5 to What If Deku Had Bond's Power. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
They trip took it to 10. Let me tell you how I come through with the 1-2, kicking shit like kung fu. Treat a bad bitch like she average. I'm a savage, little hoe, what you want do? I'm about cash if the raw fast. I'ma get that little nigga by any means.
Alright, so before we start this What If, I'd like to say that we're almost at 1,000, right? We're like less than 80 away? A little bit less than that. So I really appreciate if you guys can subscribe, because I have something planned for 1K, and I already got done recording it today. So, or most of it, right? So if you really want to see that, please subscribe. And I would like to thank Anime Junkie for giving me a shout out. I really appreciate it. So with that being said, let's get into the actual What If. So last time we just got done with the sports festival and Bon or Deku actually listening into Ida's conversation or something like that, where he knows that he's up to something and something happened to his brother, right? So we're at the kind of the part where they have to choose names for their heroes, hero names, right? So I don't know what we should call Deku in this one. I think that his subtitle should be called the Immortal Hero or something to that effect, or the Undying Hero. But I don't really know what we should call his hero name. So if you guys have any ideas, then you could tell me down below. So let's just get into it, right? So everyone would kind of pick their hero names as normal, but I think Bakugo would be a little bit different, since he is a little bit different in this, since he had that kind of trauma as a kid with Deku. So he wouldn't be so aggressive, right? So I think his hero name would reflect that, right? So I think it would be called Lord Explosion or something to that effect. So we would get into the part where they actually show off all the kind of internships that everyone got. So I think Todoroki would still get the most internships because he got pretty far into the sports festival and his father is the number 2 hero. So I think he would still get the top spot. Second would go to Deku, since he's the guy who actually won, and he wasn't like Bakugo from canon, where he was very aggressive, so people wouldn't be that shocked by him, or wouldn't be in a position where they wouldn't want to choose him, right? So we get to the point where he actually chooses, right? And I think he would recognize a name, and I think that All Might will give him a recommendation, and he's not going to Gran Torino since he doesn't have All for One or One for All. Basically, I'm gonna make it where his internship is actually going to be with Fat Gum. And if you don't know who Fat Gum is, he's basically the hero that Tamaki, which is the 9th holder of One for All in this What If, who has the manifestation quirk. That's basically his the hero that he has an internship with. So there's a couple reasons why I chose Fat Gum instead of Gran Torino and things like that, right? First off, it brings Tamaki into the story earlier than usual, and he has All for One, right? Second is that Fat Gum kind of has this kind of philosophy and theme about his character, about the spear and shield. If you want more information about this kind of philosophy, you could look up Maddie, Not the Bad Guy, his video on Fat Gum. So basically, it has to do a lot with the spear and the shield. And what I mean by that is that in this kind of theme that Fat Gum goes with, the shield is supposed to be based off the Chinese myth about how contradiction was made. Basically, it was this guy was trying to sell to this other guy a shield that could block any attack, and then he was also trying to sell a spear that could break any shield. And he asked like what would happen if they both came in contact with each other, and the guy just said, I wouldn't know. And that's where the kind of word for contradiction came up, because they just combined the two words in like Chinese or Mandarin, and just combined the two words, and that made contradiction. So the idea in this for Facum is that you either be the shield or the spear, right? And Facum, his like thing is that you can't be both at the same time, right? You either have to be the one or the other. That's why it has to do a lot with his quirk, right? His quirk is that when he eats a lot, he becomes fat, and his fat becomes like this almost impenetrable shield where he's able to absorb, kinetic energy and things like if he gets shot, then the bullets like don't hurt him, and things like knives and people as well who try to like punch his fat will just get kind of like stuck in it, right? But he also has kind of like a spear mode, right, where he burns all of his fat and actually does like a devastating attack with it, but at the cost of his defense, right? So that's why I kind of wanted to bring Deku in, or Bon Deku into this, because Deku at this point, he's more of a spear than a shield, because his like defense is not as good as it could be, right? Because he doesn't really have that many situations where he had to constantly regenerate like Bon from Seven Deadly Sins in Purgatory. So his like overall like defense is only a little bit higher than a usual human, because he has done like some regeneration. So that's why he would choose, right? So he could like build up his defense. And another reason why All Might would kind of recommend Deku to Facum is to kind of build up Tamaki's confidence, because that's like one of the areas where he's kind of lacking. He has a very powerful quirk, and he has all for one now, or one for all, but he's really lacking confidence. So I think Deku would be a perfect fit for him, since in this one Deku's a lot more confident, and he has his own harem in this, so you can't be more confident than that, right? So with that being said, we would get to the kind of days, or we get to that week where they go to train at their kind of internship, right? I think everyone would go to the same internship that they did in canon, but Deku, when he gets to Facum, they would do a little bit different training, right? At this point, Deku does not know that Tamaki is the successor to One for All, but he knows that Tamaki is a very powerful person, and he's part of the Big Three, because they would explain it to him. And yeah, so they would do some basic training, right? But what they would focus on, and what Deku would tell Facum, is that he's trying to he has a lot of offense, but he's trying to build up his defense. And this is what he would explain to Facum about. He would basically say that he needs to build up defense, and a way to do that is to constantly regenerate. So what would happen is that Tamaki would have some trouble kind of using all for one, or one for all, because his body isn't really that muscular. So he wouldn't be able to use 100% of one for all, but he would be able to use it in some circumstances, because his biology, when he eats something, changes, right? So if he eats like some sort of animal or something that's not biological, that doesn't have like bones or anything like that doesn't really get injured like that, like a normal human, he'd probably be able to use 100%. Something like if he ate octopus, he'd be able to use his like tentacles at 100%, right? And if he ate like crystal, like he does in the manga, I think he'd be able to go maybe not 100, but like higher than usual, right? And Deku would see kind of Tamaki kind of struggling with this, and Tamaki wouldn't really want to ask him for help, because they don't really know each other, and he is that kind of person where he is very shy. So Deku, being confident, would actually go up to him and ask if he needed help. that he could actually help suppress his power, right? Because he has that physical, I think snatch, or hunt, physical hunt. So he would ask, and Tamaki would agree, and as he would use like all for one throughout his body, this is when Deku would basically use physical hunt on him to steal some of that power so he could get used to how it feels at a certain like power level or percentage wise. So after a while of doing this, right, Deku would be kind of exhausted, and what he would ask Tamaki to do is basically just go at him, right, at his like highest percent that he could go, because I think at this point he would do these for like a few hours. This is kind of the routine that they would do kind of a few days, right? He would basically steal his his strength until he got used to that percentage, and then after that he would just have Tamaki kind of go all out at this higher percentage at Deku, and this would kind of destroy Deku's body, but at the same time he would just regenerate and come back stronger. So each time he's basically the punching bag, right? So they would do these for the first few days. And another part of Fat Gum's character is that he works with the police a lot. So I'm going to say that in this one he was actually working with the police to try to capture or detain the hero killer Stain. And I think that they would eventually find out that the hero killer, since he goes in a pattern, they would go to Hosu because of the pattern that he kind of left off. And it's not really that big of a stretch, because I think even Deku found out that it was going to be there, like canon Deku. So they, on the night after the few days of training, they would decide to go on to Hosu on the day that the attack would happen. They would kind of like go to that city, and as they're like going on the train, or not the train, they'd be in the city at this point, and this is when the Nomu actually attack. So it'd be Tamaki and Fat Gum and Deku, right? They would be like trying to save people that are getting attacked by the Nomu, and Fat Gum would basically tell Deku to kind of save the civilians or get anyone who is like trapped behind rubble and things like that, right? Just go around the area and kind of protect people as they fight the Nomu, since they don't want this kid to get hurt, even though he can regenerate. It just doesn't look as a good image, right? Since he is a first year. So as Deku would go around the city kind of helping anyone who was, trying to, he would help evacuate people, right? That's his kind of job. And as he's like going through the city, I think he would go and find that alleyway where Ida was, right? And this one, I think he would go and he would see Ida getting like almost like dying, right, from Stain in that fight. Not necessarily dying, but like on the floor, right? And this is when Deku would rush in and try to protect Ida, or not really paying attention to Stain. And what Deku would do is that he would do the same thing that he does in like, I think part 3, where he cuts his wrists and he would let the blood kind of flow over Ida, and this would kind of heal Ida to a certain extent, right? Like I said before, I think his blood is equal to that of recovery girls when it comes to healing. So yeah, it wouldn't be able to like regenerate limbs or things like that, but it would be able to like seal like wounds and things like that. And Stain would be kind of complex, or he'd be questioning this, right? And Deku would do the same thing to Native, since he was there. And Stain would kind of like appreciate this, right? He's like, wow, this kid is just, went out of his way and even injured himself to help these people. Maybe there are still true heroes out there. And as he's thinking this is when Deku would be like, are you the hero killer? And this is when Stain would be like, yes, I am. I'm here to kind of cleanse the city or Japan of false heroes. And this is when like Deku would kind of put his like hand on his neck, kind of cracking it, right? And then he would basically say like, wow, looks like Fat Gum was right. You are pretty easy to track. And Stain would be kind of confused. And he would be like, are you doing this for glory? And Deku would be like, nah, I'm just here to help out my friend. And this is when he would kind of like, crack all his knuckles and things like that, right? Kind of getting ready for a fight, but not really being too serious. And this, I think, would kind of make Stain mad. And he would come and rush Deku, and he would like stab him pretty deep with his katana. And this is when Stain would be like, I'm sorry I had to do this, but there needs to be a societal shift in the way that heroes are seen. I need to cleanse the society of false heroes, and sometimes I need to spill the blood of the innocent to do that. And Deku would kind of like, he would pretend to be dead for a second, and then as Stain would try to like take out his katana, this is when he would feel like he wouldn't be able to do it. And this is because Deku is actually holding on to his katana, right? And he starts to laugh, right? And Stain, not knowing what to do, he backs off, right? And this is when Deku just kind of pulls it out of himself, right? And he's like, wow, that was pretty quick. What's your quirk? And Stain obviously wouldn't tell him. And Deku would be like, it doesn't seem like it's a strength enhancing or a speed quirk, so that must be all natural. Wow, that's pretty impressive. So, hero killer, how did you kill those heroes? And Stain would still be like, it doesn't matter how I kill them, it just matters that I get the job done, right? So Stain would try to go for his like next large knife, right? And he would notice that it's missing. And this is when Deku would be like looking for these, and he would use his actual like steal ability or snatch ability. I mean, he would have done it when he was close enough to Stain to actually do it. So he would just kind of take all of his like knives that he got, only a few, right, that he was able to notice. He would just kind of throw it to the side. And this is when the hero killer is like, well, I don't know if I could, win this fight, but he wants to stick to his ideals, so he stays, right? And as he's like thinking of his next move, this is when Deku actually takes out his phone, not really paying attention to Stain, right? And Stain would be kind of confused, and he would be like, what are you doing? And Deku would just be like, oh, I'm just texting my hero, I don't know what they would call him, like the pro hero that I'm shipping with. I'm texting him my location. And now Stain's kind of worried, right? So he needs to like kind of do this fast. So he would go again for Deku, and not really directly at him, which Deku would think. He's actually going for the kind of blood, right? Because Deku doesn't know his quirk. So what would happen is that he would think that he was going for Deku, but in reality he was just going for the kind of pool of blood that Deku left behind. And Deku not realizing that he's doing that, Stain would be successful of getting his blood even like a little bit, and he would lick it. And this is when Deku would be kind of frozen, right? Because of Stain's blood curdle quirk. And this is when Deku would realize that his power has to do with blood and how it stops people if he consumes it, right? So this is when Stain would be like, you were a good fight and you were a true hero, but it's time to end you, right? And he would do because he knows that the regeneration quirks exist in this, so he would do kind of like a thing where he would cut off his head, right? Because most, if not all, people who like regenerate can't regenerate to that extent, at least in the My Hero universe, right? So Stain, thinking that it's done, he would start walking over to Ida and Native to kind of finish the job. And I think they would still be kind of out of the equation at this point, because I believe that Ida would still be under his control, and even though they got healed, it still takes somewhat of a process to do, or it doesn't heal right away, right? So as he's about to attack Ida for the second time, this is when Deku would come back and he'd be like, are you not gonna finish what you started? And Stain would look back and he'd be in shock. He'd basically be like, why won't you die, right? So eventually, as he says this was when Ida would be free from his his blood curdle, and this is around the same time when Vacuum and Tamaki would come back, since they would have been done with their fight with the Nomus. And Ida would kind of put in like a sneak attack using his engine legs, right, to kind of kick or trip Stain. And as like Stain is like tripping, this is when Deku would kind of run and punch Stain, and this would have him fly backwards into Vacuum. And this is when Tamaki would just kind of like use his tentacle cans to kind of subdue Stain. So that's kind of how the fight would go. And this is the point where, you know, Endeavor and the other heroes would come, and Todoroki would be there, but not really in the fight. So as they're like questioning what happened, you know, they would explain that it was Deku and that really took him out with the help of Vacuum, Ida, and Tamaki. So as they're kind of doing that, explaining what happened, this is when a Nomu with wings actually comes and picks up Deku. But I think Deku in this one would be a lot strong. He is a lot stronger, right? So he would basically he would use his physical hunt to drain the Nomu and just kind of take his he would just rip off his legs, right? Or the parts that are like carrying him. He would just break whatever limb is like picking him up, right? Since he's a lot more powerful in this. Or he could have just like used his snatch to kind of steal its heart. So that's basically what he would do. Stain would still do that thing that he does in the anime where he kind of intimidates everyone there, and then he kind of passes out. So I think I'll end it here. No, hold on, let's go a little bit further. So Deku, since he wasn't really that injured, he would still continue with the rest of his training, right? And I think what would happen is, this is the point in the series where Deku would learn Gift, because with the point of like learning how to be more of a shield and a spear, this is when Deku would, instead of taking energy, he would try to give it to others, kind of being that supportive role, doing the opposite of his natural quirk, right? So he would learn how to do it by kind of giving it to giving his like power to Vacuum, since he can absorb kinetic energy and won't hurt himself. So I'm gonna say that's how he learns it, right? He doesn't give away his immortality or anything like that. But yeah. So yeah, that's it. That's when he learns how to give power. So I'm going to end it here. So with that being said, remember to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate all the, people who do subscribe. And we're almost at 1,000. So yeah. Also like to thank Anime Junkie again for that shout out. So with that being said, this is going to be the end of the video. So yeah.